clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. We are live on Twitter Spaces on Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy. You can also listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube on Friday morning. The New York Knicks stay alive after the big win over the Indiana Pacers, and they did it in dominant fashion. The New York Knicks pulled together a performance that they needed so desperately. They pulled together a performance that was complete on both ends of the ball from all the key contributors that they needed to see play well. And before we go into the minutia of what worked for the Knicks in this game, what didn't work for the Indiana Pacers in this game, to me, it's important to bring back the point that I've been saying, that I've been banging the drum on since this series started and since this playoff started. Every single game is 48 minutes, and every single series in the playoffs is a best of 7. We said the same thing, or at least I said the same thing to you guys in Boston after they go up 2-0 and after they go up 3-1 and after they see Jason Tatum get hurt. You can't get too high and you can't get too low. And right now, on the opposite end of it, as the New York Knicks go down 2-0 and then down 3-1, it was a very easy response to say that we are done. The Knicks are cooked. This series is over. I remind you, 48 minutes, best of 7. This series has been so much closer than people have given credit for. People are acting as if the Pacers have won this series in insane, dominant fashion. Insane, dominant fashion that didn't take an all-time collapse/comeback in game 1. That wasn't an incredibly close game 2. That the Knicks didn't win with decent confidence in game 3. It wasn't until game 4 that we saw a game in this series that wasn't incredibly close. Let's be serious about that. Let's understand that this series has been close since the first tip. And if you thought the Knicks were going to roll over in game 5, well, clearly you were mistaken. But I, again, will add that I think it was a miscalculation and a misunderstanding of what this series has been the whole time and what it was always going to be. The New York Knicks are simply a team that plays close to the chest. In fact, it's still shocking to me that they won a game in which the opposing coach was able to just pull the starters and the Knicks were able to chill for 2.5 minutes. It's not what we're used to. It's not what this series is used to. And so quickly do we forget that game 1 was insanely close and an all-timer, obviously against the Knicks' way. Game 2 was a game that they easily could have won. Not saying they should have won, but could have won. And game 3, they won. So I say that again to remind you that this thing was always close. And if you think it was not close, that's on you. So what did the Knicks do here in game 5 to make this happen? What did the Knicks do in order to make this series extended? Well, to me, it was very simple. They came out with a serious energy on both sides of the floor, but most specifically defensively. There's not one major thing that I'm going to point to that they changed defensively, but it was more so an overarching connectivity. It wasn't overextending too harshly to rotate, to run to a closeout, to fly over screens, to watch Tyrese Halliburton create whatever piece of space that he needed to create. It was a more sound, connected defensive approach with the aggression you need to win in the playoffs. Perfectly balanced. And obviously, when you can come off the gate and make shots right away, then we're talking about both things working in unison. And seeing Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns play that well offensively off rip, it goes to show what this team is when they're clicking, what this team was in game 1 when they were clicking with a massive lead in the fourth quarter. And it feels like you're throwing something spaghetti at the wall, right? When you're trying to look back at game 1, a game in which they lost, and find positives. But when you're looking at the big picture of this series, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to see the entire picture, the entire scope of what's been taking place. And to me, this entire scope, the big picture, has been even, has been close, has been well fought, and a battle. And the Pacers were getting their little licks in, but the Knicks were able to squish the runs. They were able to squeeze them from being comfortable on offense. Because there were moments in this game where the Knicks offense wasn't crisp, where they weren't getting good looks, where they were forcing some jump shots and they weren't hitting them. But consistently, outside of the free throw parade that happened in the third quarter for Indiana, the Knicks constantly were squishing these runs. And when you go further more about the specifics of the offense, they committed to one specific thing again that worked in their one win in game 3, that worked again here in game 5. And that's Karl Anthony Towns being an offensive force that they can't guard. They truly, really can't guard Karl Anthony Towns consistently in these moments. And yes, his foul trouble is infuriating. And yes, he's consistently putting himself in bad spots where he can't be on the floor. But overall, this dude is an offensive problem for Indiana. And Jalen Brunson was consistent and deliberate in this game. Frankly, it also helped that Aaron Nesmith wasn't on the floor quite as much. That helps a ton. But when you start looking at the big picture once again, you're seeing a series that has been this close the whole time, that has had the back and forths the whole time, and not this series that at 3-1 feels like an absolute domination from one side to the other. It's never been that. And now that the Knicks have won game 5 and are going back to Indy to play game 6, I wouldn't sit here and expect domination on the Knicks side again. They're going to come back with their energy, with a different willpower back at home on Saturday. So I'm not making predictions just yet because we got a lot to say still. And we got people popping in the spaces here. I'm Pete Kennedy of Subway Sports Talk. Thank you guys for popping in right now. Thank you for listening on the podcast app or YouTube on Friday or Saturday. And right now we got some guys ready to speak. So let's get to it. If you would like to speak, either throw up your hand emoji and I could request or allow you to be a speaker, or you can simply hit request to join and I will add you and get to you off rip. So first and foremost, the first person to request a speaker, my guy, Mr. Mets Muse, who gets a night off from the Mets and gets to enjoy his Knicks team. Mr. Nick Foster, my guy, what is up?
What's going on, Pete? Yeah, no, actually, that's a really great way to put it. Got to enjoy the Knick win without any Mets baseball today, which was really nice because this is one of the only instances this offseason where we had a Mets off day on a Knick playoff game. But listen, this is all Knick fans wanted, right? All you said was, all right, get me to game 6, and now this is exactly where we stand here at game 6. And my key to the game in Indiana on Saturdays, the Knicks need to be exactly what they've been all year, the road warrior cardiac Knicks, 6-2 on the road in the playoffs. They've been the comeback kids the whole year. And so now that's exactly what you have to be here on Saturday. You have to stick to your identity and be who you've been the whole year and get a win that everybody else is going to go into it saying, well, this is impossible for the Knicks, right? They've been able to redefine what you think is possible, that what you can get out of this team the whole year. And they did it here tonight. I mean, it's just I feel like we had this in the Boston series too, just the way I felt when they were able to go up on the Boston Celtics after dropping that game, and it was 2-1 and you weren't feeling good, and then all of a sudden they went up 3-1 and I was crying. I was saying, oh, well, really they got lucky in games 1 and 2, and they really have to kind of change who they are as a team now to continue to be ahead in this series. And I feel like that's what they did again tonight. They're going to the bench. Landry Shamet played huge minutes for the Knicks, and so did our guy Delon Wright. And we, Sports Talk Radio all day on ESPN Radio was crying screaming for Precious Achiuwa to get minutes, and he got minutes, and he made a couple big plays. And Mitchell Robinson came up big, and they shot well. And your best players, Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, played great in a series where they have not played great on the floor together. And so it seems like once again the Knicks were able to show you what they're capable of. And the question is, well, can they do that for 2 more games and do it for 3 games in a row, which really we've barely seen them be a complete team all year. Can they be a complete team for 3 games?
That's the big question, right? I think it's one of those things where I personally don't want to get so high from this game 5 win because we've seen this before. We saw the Boston Celtics after the Jason Tatum injury go back home and dominate that game, play, balls to the wall, their best performances from all of their guys. And not that the Knicks were in the exact same situation because, no one got hurt and there was no massive injury that changed the lineups or anything like that. But the Knicks were playing back against the wall and the Pacers had a little cushion. And they let that cushion ride a little bit. You can tell by Tyrese Halliburton, who knows what was going on with him today. I mean, the lack of shot attempts, the lack of aggression, his imprint on this game was non-existent. And then again, I just mentioned this before Mr. Mets Muse popped in there. Aaron Nesmith only played 16 minutes. Now, of course, he got a couple fouls early, but he didn't get into foul trouble. So was it the ankle? What was it? Right? Because I think it's obvious that Jalen Brunson is a different cat when, and no pun intended on the cat reference there, he's a different dude when Nesmith is guarding him. I think we can all sit here as Knicks fans and feel incredibly confident when Nemhard's on him, when Ben Shepherd's on him, when Tyrese Halliburton's on him, and frankly, even when TJ McConnell's on him. And obviously, when the bigs get switched on him, you feel great as well. So there's so many advantages for the New York Knicks when Aaron Nesmith's not on the floor. And on top of that, he shot 1 of 5 from 3. So he couldn't hit a shot. He wasn't on the floor to guard Jalen Brunson, and that creates a different level of comfort for the Knicks star player who has to play well in order for them to, make a true run in this series. Next up, Rob Russo joining us in all these spaces, having a great time with my guy, Rob, of course. Rob, pop in. How the heck are you feeling right now?
Man, I'm feeling good. I'm really feeling good. I came into this game, I was confident that the Knicks were going to get a win. They were going to extend this series. There was no way that they would bow out in 5 games to the Pacers. There was just absolutely no way. Not only because I think that they felt the pressure in this game and they knew that they would rise to the occasion, but also, as you kind of mentioned, even though the Pacers were up 3-1 in this series, the series is much closer than that. Only one team can win every game, though.
Right.
To break down what I saw today, you touched on it for just a moment there. The way that Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns were playing off each other today was something that I don't think we've seen all series to this level of effectiveness. I think that was a huge reason that they got out to, the start that they did in this game, that they were able to build on throughout the game and keep pace and keep distance. And then just Cat on his own was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal today. I think, this knee injury or whatever he's got going on right now, it looks like it's kind of pissed him off a little bit. He kind of looks like an injured lion out there a little bit that's trying to fight for himself, fend for himself, get a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more angry out there. And I think it's working out in his benefit. I think he's also kind of playing a little bit more closer to a true center type of role, which I think is benefiting the Knicks. It's allowing the spacing to look a lot better. And then I just think overall, as this team is going to continue, and I hope that they do, age better and better into this game 6, into this game 7, now more comfortable with the lineups that they're rolling. DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet out there for large stretches of this game. Shamet a revelation, seriously. I mean, you look back at the way that this season has gone, you look back at all these games where the Knicks never beat a contender in the regular season, you say, okay, why weren't these guys playing more in moments like that? So, Tibbs was forced to make these changes. I don't think that he would have if he didn't have his back completely against the wall. And you still see a little bit of that hard-headedness out there when you see Josh Hart still getting the minutes that he's getting when he's playing, frankly, one of the worst games that he's played all playoffs. And, he's had a couple stinkers in this Pacers series. But going to the bench, these guys are more comfortable with the minutes they're getting. I mean, these are guys, Shamet, Wright, these are guys that were playing 2-3 minutes in garbage time in the regular season, and now Landry Shamet is in Madison Square Garden in crunch time in the fourth quarter of a win or die game, and the place is roaring down on him with his name, chanting it back at him because he is just that impactful in the game. And you come into this series and you think, how is it even possible that this is what we're experiencing right now? But this is what the Knicks needed to do, and they're doing it. I'm just a stellar performance. It really was a stellar performance from the Knicks.
And I think one of the things people forget about Landry Shamet is he's not like some young dude who has no playoff experience.
Exactly.
This guy has played 60 playoff games in his career now. 60 playoff games. Not that he's been incredible in those games, but he played some key minutes for Phoenix in some of their deep playoff runs. He played for Brooklyn in a multi-series run. He played for the Clippers in a multi-series run. This is a guy who's been around, right? Like Landry Shamet also is a dude who's not like an incredible defender, but he grinds on defense and he moves pretty well. He's not going to be a stopper like OG or Aaron Nesmith, but he is going to be a guy who gets in the way, who gets in passing lanes, who creates difficult opportunities for the opponents. And DeLon Wright, he can't finish a freaking layup after his incredible steals. Every freaking time he gets a steal, he blows the layup. But you can tell when he's out there, he is comfortable. He knows what he's supposed to do, and he knows his assignment. And that is exactly kind of what the Knicks need in these moments where they start to see things slip away.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, you talk about how comfortable DeLon Wright looks out there. And yeah, he's a bit of a liability on the offensive end. But how comfortable he is out there on defense. And even when they task him in bringing the ball up the court. And he does that in a very safe and secure manner. And then you watch the way that Josh Hart's playing. And I don't know. It just seems like he's constantly disconnected and discombobulated, and he's maybe his mind is 10 steps ahead of where his hands are, where his feet are, but he just looks like everything he does is so rushed in a way where he just needs to take a breath for a moment. Some of these times, let the offense breathe, let everyone adjust and set, especially if he's not just driving to the basket, because we know how good he is when he's just pushing the pace and can get his own shot in transition. But I think when he starts to do too much when he's trying to pass in those situations, he's just turning the ball over, and it's ugly. It's ugly. You look at the plus minus factors when he's on and off the court, and it's getting stark at this point. So the question becomes, I think, in my opinion, how much longer is his leash?
Well, Josh Hart played 34 minutes in this game. He had 10 rebounds and 4 assists. He obviously didn't score. Actually, I'm sorry, he did score decently well. He scored 12. He had a few free throws, 4 of 6 from the line. He still seems to make enough plays, Rob. So I do kind of agree with you. He doesn't seem like his full version of himself at this point in time. The way he usually attacks in fast break, in transition, even when he gets downhill on a closeout, you can see a different aggression from him trying to score the ball or make plays. So there's a little bit of discomfort with him, and you question yourself, is that because he's not starting, the routine gets thrown off? Maybe that's a cop-out. I'm not sure, but he's going to play 28 minutes minimum to me, no matter what. It just depends when, where, how those minutes are coming. And if he is playing like the Josh Hart we've seen over the past year and a half, he's going to play 35. Yeah. And that's okay. And I think now seeing what Shamet, Deuce McBride, and DeLon Wright are doing, you feel a little more comfortable saying, okay, Josh doesn't have to play 43 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mikhail don't have to play 44, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think DeLon, especially defensively, I think is a good substitution if you don't want a Hart out there in every chance that you can get. We touch on this pretty much every space that I've been on, but Mitchell Robinson out there tonight, what a dog. What a dog.
Absolute beast.
I just tweeted like halfway through when I was just watching. It's just end to end, the way that he impacts the game. Not everything comes up on the stat sheet, but everything he does is just felt so emphatically. And they've been able to navigate around the hack-a-Mitch, and the Pacers aren't doing it to the level that the Celtics were doing it. But Mitch has been better at the line, to his credit, went 0 for 2 in his hack-a-Mitch attempt tonight. But it's so incredible what he's able to do. The energy that he brings he brings such a spark, and he moves his feet so well. We talked about this on the pod maybe before this series started. you expect a center to be kind of loafing, especially at his size and his
Right.
kind of build, but he's not at all. He is like he makes Miles Turner's life a living hell. And even on the switches, he's sticking with his man. He's a pressure, and he just knows his role so well. I just tweeted that Mitchell Robinson, we are not worthy, and it's just, I mean, he turns the tides of games when you stack up everything he does over the course of one.
Yeah, and he is just so simply not a box score guy. You have to see what he does, like you said there, and he has those impacts where sometimes he's not getting a rebound, but he's the reason the Knicks are, or sometimes he doesn't get a block, but he's the reason they missed a shot, and that's so important to this team. And he only played 20 minutes in this game, and that was large in part because Karl Anthony Towns, did play so well, and because the Hack and Mitch came at a weird time, and obviously he didn't have to check back in the fourth quarter. So only 20 minutes, but an impactful 20 in that first half where he felt like he was making, swings by himself. And I also want to shout out Angel and Richie have been in the spaces since the beginning. If y'all want to pop in, please raise your hand and request to speak. I'd love to hear from you guys as well. This has been a series that, Rob, I want to go back to this point here. I don't know how you felt after game 4. I'm sure you felt as defeated as I did and all Knicks fans did. But did you have the dread of like, oh my gosh, the Pacers are on a different level from this team?
No, I never did. And it's one of those series where the teams are so evenly matched, and sometimes you flip a coin, heads or tails, a couple of times in a row, and it goes heads more ways than it goes tails. It doesn't exactly split 50-50 to get you right down the line to a nice, even, clean game 7.
Right.
And now in this situation, we hope it does go to a game 7, but you need 2 more tails in a row for the Knicks to come out and get their way to the finals. I just never felt like, especially once they started digging into the bench and when they started getting comfortable doing that. And I think getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, maybe more so for Tibbs and the guys off the bench who've been ready for this, it looks like, for the entire season. But I never felt like the Knicks were outmatched. They were just getting outplayed in specific games. I mean, there's games in this series where the Knicks have just fallen off a cliff. They've looked sloppy. The end of game 1 was a travesty to the great performance that they had for the 45 minutes before that. And then in the third win for the Pacers, I mean, the Knicks they seemed flat-footed. So it's a rough one to be down in this spot, but it's one win at a time. It's one at a time. You just keep crawling and fighting back. Now you go to Indiana, and if you can win in Indiana, you come back to the Garden in the biggest game that this city has seen in a really, really, really long time.
Yeah, in 25 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep it a buck. And again, one at a time. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here because we know what's possible from this Indiana Pacers team on Saturday. Like, we know exactly what can happen. We can see a different version of Tyrese Halliburton. And I want to kind of talk about him for a second because on my most recent podcast, I did a whole segment talking about, all the things that he deserved praise for. This guy plays an infectious style of basketball. And you could probably point to that as to why the Pacers were a little bit shot tonight, because he wasn't playing good and he was being infectious in the bad type of way, right? But he plays a style as a point guard who's a true distributor. He's as close to an old-fashioned point guard as we have in the NBA right now. He actually sets up and makes his teammates better consistently. And when he's in attack mode as a scorer, he is incredibly dangerous. And now there were conversations about, oh, is he actually a top 10 player? Is he a top 7 player? Is he a top 4 point guard? All these questions were coming into reality over the past 2 days, and they were valid, right? I'm not going to say now because he had one bad game that this is not a valid question about who Tyrese Halliburton is. However, we do know how this world of the NBA works, and if he shows up, or I should say doesn't show up again in game 6, all the positive that he brought upon himself so far in this playoffs is for naught. So there's a different level of pressure on him now in game 6, and he seems to respond pretty well to pressure. So I'm expecting a solid performance for him. However, this is a different pressure than he's ever had because he's always been the underdog. The Pacers were never expected to beat the Knicks last year. They weren't expected to beat Boston last year, and they put up a valiant effort to do so. They weren't expected to beat Cleveland this year. They weren't expected to beat the Knicks this year. And now they're on the top. And it's different when you are the top dog and you are expected to be the one to deliver. And now he has to deal with that. Now he has to step up and own that whole different level of pressure.
Yeah, I believe that he will. I think we're going to see a really good game out of him, especially after a poor performance. A bounce back is due in part for a player that's in these conversations, as you mentioned, as a top 10 player perhaps in the league. I mean, you posted a video about it, about how much you hated it, but yet it's still true about how great of a player he really is. In the way that he distributes the ball, in the way that he genuinely makes everyone better. And, watching Jalen Brunson go off for 30 in some of these games, but the Knicks have just been out of it because of how kind of clogged the offense can get when he runs isolation style ball. Meanwhile,
Right.
Tyrese Halliburton's getting 15 assists, 0 turnovers, and his team is winning. And you say, okay, which one would I rather have? And in some, and those thoughts cross your mind. Obviously, I think Jalen Brunson's a better player than Halliburton overall. But now I think it's you get to a point where Halliburton has to step up. I think he will step up, and that just means the Knicks have to play even better. And so they might have to roll with that, all defensive lineup. You might have to rock with those bench guys for a little bit longer if you have two weaker defenders in Cat and Brunson. I mentioned it a couple of days ago, I think, as well. I mean, I like when Cat. I mean, today they looked great on the floor together early on in this game. But for the most part, I like when they separate them, especially because their pick and roll has been non-existent up through.
It's MIA.
It's
dude.
MIA,
Where is it?
and
Yeah.
I mean, you do this trade, you make this trade in the beginning of the season, and you think that's the thing I'm most excited about: the pick and roll, the pick and pop, all the possibilities that you can get. So
and all year it was.
Yeah, and it just really hasn't been where it needs to be in this space. So okay, let's adjust and let's have McBride out there, the defensive lineup out there to help mitigate some of the effects of having Cat out there, who is lackluster on defense at times, and then have Mitchell Robinson out there and a bigger, more defensive lineup to help support Jalen Brunson and his scoring and increase the spacing, having a true center down low. And so I think there's a lot of different combinations that Coach Tibb can work through to get the Knicks where they need to be. Game 6 is winnable, just like games 1 through 5 were. We could have been, again, whatever happened in game 1 happened, but if you play this series 10 different times, if you run a simulation, Knicks could have swept the Pacers by now. Pacers could have swept the Knicks. Could have been 3-2, and everyone could have won a game in alternating fashion, right? So the Knicks aren't in a 3-1 hole having to climb back.
Correct.
So there's so many different things that could have happened in this series, but this is where we are right now. Got to focus on the game ahead. What's happened behind you doesn't matter. Being down 3-1 is meaningless now because you're down 3-2. You have to go into Saturday and address it as such. Every game is do or die. Every game is must win. The Knicks have clutch players. Got to see if they can stick with it.
The big thing there too is the most recent game doesn't matter anymore. And the games all before that really don't matter anymore. And I bring them up more if it's a point of reference of understanding the scope of what this series has actually been in reality, and not just, looking at a box score and not just saying that it's 3-1. Like, we know this has been close, but now nothing that happened in game 4 mattered in game 5, and nothing that's going to happen in game 6, mattered from game 5 either. So this is just where we are at right now. And one thing I do want to bring up here before we go to back to Mr. Mets Muse, Nick Foster over here, the line that just opened up for game 6 is Pacers -4. That's obviously a big flop from where we just were. The Knicks were -5 to start this day. They were -4, 4.5, depending on where you look before the game started. So now it's flipped. Pacers -4. My other question, and Foster, don't feel obligated to answer this right away. You can take it wherever you want. But what was up with Aaron Nesmith? He only played 16 minutes. I was frankly shocked that Rick Carlisle pulled all the players when he did, even with 3.5 minutes left, knowing what they did in game 1. Is Nesmith's ankle truly that injured? I've been looking all over Twitter. I'm not seeing anything just yet. He didn't shoot particularly well. He's still obviously the best option on Jalen Brunson, but I'm just very curious what comes out about Aaron Nesmith heading into game 6, because I think that is a massive, massive swing in the Knicks' favor if he can't go a full 30 minutes. Nick Foster, what's up? Welcome back.
Yeah, so I will actually get to your question because it is a good one, obviously very relevant. But I want to bring up two trends that are relevant to a point that each of you brought up. So first, I'm going to go back to what you said, Pete, about Halliburton. Now, the exact stat, the number, I'm not sure, but when Halliburton scores 25 plus, the Pacers win, and they win a lot. The Pacers are at their best when Halliburton is at his best. When Halliburton has good games, the Pacers are one of the best teams in the league. When Halliburton doesn't play well, that's when you can attack the Pacers. And the problem with Halliburton is, and I think we seem to forget this a little bit, Halliburton's an inconsistent dude. This is one of the knocks on him not being looked at as one of the top superstars in the league, because Halliburton will have performances like he had the other night where he doesn't turn the ball over. He has a triple-double, like an incredible, like almost perfect game, right? And you have nights like tonight where he just simply goes invisible. And we saw that in the semifinal series last year where Halliburton is hot and cold. When Halliburton's hot, the Pacers are hot. But he's just too streaky and inconsistent and sometimes can be unreliable. And now the point that Rob brought up that is now, of course, slipping my mind. Another trend that I'm looking at in this series is the Brunson and Cat, and it's something I touched on before. Again, a stat that I don't know the exact numbers. Of course, now it's changed since the last time I've looked at it. But in this series, Brunson and Cat have been a net -1 on the court together. They're at their best in this series when they're staggered and they're playing off the court separately. So Brunson is a plus when Cat is not on the floor, and Cat is plus when Brunson's not on the floor. But when they're together, they're a minus. They haven't been good together in this series, and it's going to be interesting to see how Tom Thibodeau continues to attack this issue and try and make it work in this series. The Pacers are simply just a very weird matchup for the Knicks, and I think that Cat Brunson dynamic is kind of like the forefront of that for me to continue to see how they're going to play on the floor together for the rest of the two games of this series, and if they can kind of figure out this dilemma and try to how to get the best out of Brunson and the best out of Cat. Tonight you got the best out of both. I thought that your two best players were two of the best players on the court tonight, and that needs to continue to be the case for the Knicks to force a game 7 and potentially go to the NBA Finals. And
you go ahead.
And to answer your question, where's Aaron Nesmith? The Pacers playing from behind the whole game. I feel like they might have settled a little bit in this one. I felt that throughout the game that they felt like they were settling a little bit. And why, if Aaron Nesmith is truly injured, right, questionable in the last game, he was a game time decision. Why would you try and push that ankle if it maybe wasn't feeling so great today if you're playing from behind? And Rick Carlisle just didn't feel like they had as good of a chance where you can just rest him for an extra day and then have him ready to go at home for game 6.
Yeah, and in his 16 minutes, he wasn't as good defensively on Brunson as he's been so far this series, but he's still the best option, and I don't think that's particularly close. We'll see what kind of gusto he comes out with in Game 6, because, again, to me, that's the series at this point. If it's Ben Shepherd and Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell and Benedict Mathurin, I love Jalen Brunson's chances. I love it. I think the only person who can truly guard Brunson is Aaron Nesmith, and the only person on the Indiana Pacers who can guard Karl-Anthony Towns is Karl-Anthony Towns. He's the only person who stops himself. You heard Stan Van Gundy, who I happen to love on these broadcasts here. He was going nuts. He's like, nobody can guard this dude one-on-one. Miles Turner's too slow side to side. The other guys are too small. No one's guarding Cat one-on-one. So if he stays out of foul trouble, he's a problem for them. And you combine that with no Aaron Nesmith, and this Knicks offense is hitting its stride. That's just the fact of the matter here. Now, that doesn't mean that the Pacers offense can't hit the stride on the other end, because we know that Siakam can go crazy. We know what Halliburton can do when he's hot. And now Benedict Mathurin, who scores freaking 2.5 points a minute, is becoming a playoff weapon here on offense for the Pacers as well. You know, just because Brunson and Cat are getting what they want on offense doesn't mean that this is going to be a simple game, right? The Pacers offense is still really good. They can still get super hot and go on crazy runs. However, to me, that is an absolute seesaw for this series is Aaron Nesmith's health. Because now if he's not fully healthy, ready to go, you got two dudes who you can't guard in Brunson and Cat. Rob, welcome back in. Come on back.
Yeah, just want to agree with you that Van Gundy is fantastic. I think that the addition of him to make it a 3-man booth instead of just Reggie Miller, I mean, it's great. Love him because he's just
now wait. As a broadcast guy, as you are,
yes.
Staten Island Ferry Hawks, University of Florida, the whole 9. Can you give an honest assessment of what Reggie's done in this series? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it everything in between? What
It's
is
the
it?
worst.
All right. I'm not like.
What'd you say, Foster? You said the worst?
I said it's the worst. It never fails to make me annoyed. Nicely.
Yeah, he bothers me at times. In my opinion, I mean, Knicks fans don't like him because obviously he's a Pacer and of everything, his history with the Knicks, and doesn't bode well for this series. I don't know. I think he's just kind of bland next to Kevin Harlan, to be honest with you. I don't think he's a very interesting voice. I don't think he adds very much, and when he does, it's just obnoxious points. And I don't know, but that's kind of beside the point.
Now, wait, before you move on, though, let me just say this real quick, because I thought in game 4, Reggie Miller was finding these weird moments to say something pro Knicks, right? Like it was like, all right,
True.
Reggie will say a bunch of things anti Knicks, and then like some obvious call that everyone agrees with in the world. Reggie's like, oh, the Knicks got screwed on that one. Like, yeah, thanks, Reg. It's freaking too late for that. However, I'm just keeping it a buck. It's what I do out here. In game 5 here, I thought he was much better. I thought he was good, and perhaps that's because the Knicks won and I didn't have to hear some of the snark from Reggie Miller there. I thought he was much better in this game, but Stan constantly just unabashedly being a coach in the broadcast booth, giving you his heart and soul on every play of what he thinks happening, what he thinks is working, what's not working. I love it. Like when he was like Siakam, I hate to keep saying this, but every time Siakam spins over that shoulder, he misses. I'm like, this is the only thing you get from a Van Gundy. I'm a Van Gundy stan, I guess I'll say.
That's a good pun there too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of lost where we were before that. I do
we were talking. I'll just go wherever you want, but I could bring it back if you need me.
Yeah, I'll just touch on this because you mentioned Cat a little bit before and how he's borderline unstoppable, and the only person that can stop Cat is Cat himself. That's something that I have seen throughout the past couple of games, I would say, and maybe it's more of a larger issue. Karl Anthony Towns just takes awful fouls.
Awful.
Like, a lot of the time. Like sometimes, his whistle is bad. And his
whistle is also awful. Both things awful.
Both things are true. Sometimes he'll get really soft calls on him, but then he'll be out there with 3-4 fouls and he'll push Pascal Siakam to the floor. And then he'll be like, what did I do? And I'm like, dude, bro. Like you can't do that right now. And then the Knicks got into a situation where they had to go and play Precious because they couldn't go to their bench, and Mitchell Robinson couldn't get out there because of the free throw situation, and he also was in a bit of foul trouble himself. And they had to put and Precious did a good job in the couple of minutes that he was out there to make up for it until they were able to work some other guys back out onto the floor and keep that. But like, if this continues, like if this was a closer game and the Knicks didn't have a big of a cushion as they did, that could have been really bad. Like that could have swung the game. If the Pacers had just made a couple more open shots throughout the game, and that's followed up in the way that it did, and Cat had to go sit on the bench at the end of the third, going into the fourth, could have been awful. Could have been really bad for him. And so I think that's frustrating. I think the same thing happens with Brunson, where he just that wasn't an issue today, but he takes some really dumb fouls where I'm just kind of flabbergasted at what the point of it was, and just got to play smarter, knowing that you are necessary to get this team to the next game.
Yeah. Like when Stan Van Gundy at the end of, what was it, quarter, was it end of the half or end of the third? I forget, where they got the 0.6 seconds back on the clock. And Van Gundy was like, I would leave Cat on the bench. He could set an illegal screen. I don't know what he's going to do. I'm like, honestly, fair.
Yeah,
fair point.
I agreed.
And leave him away.
Yeah. And so it's situations like that where I'm like, where it kills me. And again, didn't end up mattering tonight, but that's some of the stuff that, I mean, you go back and you have to nitpick, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, and that persists, and you're not careful with the way that you're playing out there on the court, because I mean, it wasn't even a defensive play. I mean, it was off the ball on Siakam where he just tossed him to the floor. And I'm just like, come on, like, and it, yeah. So that was what I had to say about that, because that like has been weighing on my mind, and it's been making me really angry. I mean, especially, you look back to was it last game, when there was just that flurry of fouls against the Knicks,
Yeah, and
and
like
a lot of them were
44 seconds.
like pretty cheap calls.
Very.
And then in the midst of all that, Cat is yanking on Miles Turner's arm,
Yeah,
and gets
grabbing
called,
his wrist.
and gets called for it. And it's like, that's a foul. You know that you're in a bad spot. Team's going to go into foul trouble with 7 minutes or whatever it was left in the game, and you're doing that. And it breaks my brain a little bit sometimes with him. So I had to just air my grievances. But I don't know where we were before the
No,
Van Gundy conversation, but
no, it's totally fair though. It's one of those things where you know how important he is. You're sitting there on your couch being like, dude, don't do that. Don't do
yes,
that. And
exactly.
then he does the dumbest thing possible. On the Brunson front, on the fouls, I find with him, it makes a little bit more sense because he's just getting hounded for 90 feet every
Sure.
single possession. And he's getting hit and hit and hit, that he gets frustrated and tries to kind of respond with that same physicality. But because he's not always that physical, he doesn't get away with as much. And that's why some of the soft fouls get called on him, but they make sense. Like there was a couple fouls on Brunson and Hart bringing the ball up across half court today that it felt like it took 3 hits before they called the foul. And that's because the Pacers, I shouldn't say all of them, but some of them, Neesmith, Siakam, Jarris Walker today, Ben Mathurin, they're constantly like trying to get in the Knicks shorts. They're constantly putting hands and body on these people, and they're not going to call every single touch. So when Brunson gets frustrated and on the other end is like, hey, this is how they're defending me, I'm going to defend you like that, he gets called for the foul. And honestly, it kind of checks out. To wrap things up, because I got to get going kind of soon here, I do want to talk about Mikal Bridges here because he had an interesting game. I thought that he played relatively well in moments, but still was a little bit gun shy. Obviously, he didn't hit the 3, hit a few really huge fadeaways that we all got pissed about in game 4. But him and OG combined for just 23 points. I shouldn't say just, but they combined for 23 points. But Mikal specifically, did you guys feel like you saw positive versions of Mikal in this game? Was it a bit of a mixed bag? And what do you kind of expect from him in a game 6?
From coming from a guy who doesn't overly analyze the game during the game, like I tend to get caught up in like more of the storylines and the moment rather than kind of analyzing a possession by possession.
Right.
I kind of Mikal Bridges kind of slipped my mind a little bit in this game. I feel like,
Yeah.
I feel like he took a back seat, and that might be an okay thing. But I'm gonna bring up something that I heard on one of my favorite shows, Don Hahn and Rosenberg, and it was in the Celtics series. The games 1 and 2 were the OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges game, and you probably won that series because those two players who you acquired to try and beat a team like the Celtics, you won that series because of those OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges games separately. And the Pacers are a team that is very similar to the Boston Celtics, and kind of the way that they're built and a little bit of the play style that they have. And I feel like if the Knicks want to win this series, they're going to need one or two, at least one of those OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges games where they just take over in big moments and they make big plays. And in this series so far, and even here tonight, like you still really haven't gotten that from them. It's like, oh wow, Mikal Bridges, or oh wow, OG Anunoby, and I'm still waiting for that because I think that might be what tips the balance in this series. And I think the key for Game 6 is, if you want to say for Mikal Bridges, is give me the Mikal Bridges game in Game 6. Mikal Bridges, you need to show up and have your another signature Nick moment, or even if it's not Mikal, then OG show up in a big way, where I'm sitting here like Mitchell Robinson was tonight, and I'm like, wow, Mitchell Robinson, huge impact on this game, stepped up tonight. Let me see that from either Mikal or his counterpart OG.
Yeah. Shout out Wingstop.
Shout out Wingstop. Yeah, for sure. Got to agree with you there. Nick made some great points, and I didn't mind Mikal Bridges today. Definitely was less frustrated with him today than I was with him a game ago. But he hit his shots today. There was some big time points from him just in good moments.
Yeah.
Where those 2 points kind of felt like they mattered more. when Mikal was hitting them. And so it felt good. His points definitely felt good, especially after his shooting performance the other day. And I think it was good to kind of take the load off him just a little bit. Again, still just, you said gun shy. I mean, he struggles with the physicality. And like
Yeah.
there was that one tic-tac-toe connection with Brunson to Mikal to Hart under the basket where, Mikal was, he luckily found Hart, who was driving to the basket, where I
Right.
think Mikal,
It worked out great, but it wasn't a great moment.
no, it wasn't a great moment. He was kind of off balance a little bit, but if he had maintained that and just put a dribble on the floor and put it up, it would have been fine had Hart not been there. But he wasn't looking to do that. Like, he almost looked lost in that moment, as because he was afraid to go up and he couldn't go to his, signature fadeaway. And so Hart kind of bailed him out there for a minute. And it's like we're getting to a point now where the jokes about the fadeaways are not, they're not jokes anymore. Like, it's not
No,
just
it's very real.
it's very real. And I don't know if that's like that's a mental thing or whatever it may be, but he is seriously afraid of contact. And he's a guy that if he goes to the basket, like, he could draw contact so well because
Yeah, he's so long.
he's
He's so
so
hard to
long.
block.
There's so much to foul when he goes to the basket. 6'6", enormous wingspan, like, would be obnoxious. But because he's fading away on every single play, I mean, you just rarely see him, if ever, at the free throw line. And I think that would be able to benefit the Knicks. I mean, again, 6'6", put a couple floaters up, drive on a couple layups, get some and ones to go instead of fading away to take a more difficult shot. It could swing a game. It could just in that alone. And if we have a Mikal Bridges game, I feel like we're gonna have to see some of that.
Yeah, he actually for this series, it's 2 free throws, 2 free throws, 2 free throws, 1, and then 0.
Yeah,
In game 5. So that's
exactly.
just
Sure.
kind of telling you everything you need to know. And he took 16, 18, 18, 15, and 12 shots. So he's getting the shots up. It's just they're not, they're not by the rim. They're just not. And like, he takes a couple threes a game, and he hit 4 out of 5 in the loss in game 4. A little bit too late on some of them there, but he needs to just be assertive. And it's something where when he's assertive and he's getting to his spots, it is so smooth and so impressive and so meaningful to this offense. It's just so hard for him to get there sometimes. And perhaps today specifically was because Kat and Jalen Brunson were so efficient and playing such good basketball. But you need to see some more from Mikal for sure. All right, guys, let's finish up here. I don't know if I even want to do like predictions at this point. I'm not huge on the predictions here. I like to stick to my prediction from the original pick as much as possible, but I said Knicks in 6, so that's wrong. And now it's basically just Pacers in 6, Pacers in 7, or Knicks in 6. I don't know. Let's go with just next game. What do we expect for game 6 Saturday night for the Knicks performance and the Pacers looking for a bounce back? Rob, let's start with you.
Well, I expect a war. I expect a serious war. I expect this series to bubble over, come to a head, and I expect the Pacers to give one of their best efforts. I think the Knicks are going to be able to, match that in a similar way that I don't know if we've seen the best of both teams at the same time in every game this series. There's been stretches in games where, we've gotten the best of both teams going back and forth and throwing haymakers at one another. But, there's been games where the Knicks looked off. There's been games where the Pacers looked off. You see that tonight. And so I think tomorrow, or Saturday, pardon, I think is going to be just a back and forth, blow for blow slugfest. Regardless of if it goes to 7, I expect a real good game because the Pacers want to close this one out. But this Knicks team, I just cannot imagine them not going out without a fight. I just don't see it in them. So I think it goes to 7. Not going to say my original pick on that show was the same as Cody's. It was the Knicks in 7.
Yes, it was.
So we're going to stick to our guns there. We're going to see it go to 7. It's going to come back to MSG, but it is going to be a war.
Go ahead, Nick.
I expect that whatever I go into Game 6 expecting will not happen, because if there's one thing that we know, not just about this Knicks team, but about these entire playoffs, is that the expectation has been totally flipped, and the predictors like myself, who I like to sit down and be like, oh, this is what I predict. I'm always wrong. I'm even more wrong now, because I didn't even think that the Knicks would get to a Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals at the start of the playoffs, let alone even make it past Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Semifinals. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to expect a back and forth close game. Um, I'm going to expect the Knicks to do what they have done the whole year, a little bit different from tonight. I think that they're going to revert back to the play from behind. I think they're going to be playing from behind again, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's going to come down to, can they find a way in those final 2 minutes? You've been the closers all year. Now you run into a team that's arguably better at closing games than you. Can you find a way to, which you haven't really done all series, is close a game, outside of obviously the big 20-point comeback, but in games 1 and 2, what you didn't do was close late. And
Right.
can the Knicks come from behind and close late in Game 6? I think that's what we're gonna end up seeing. I think that they're gonna. I kind of hinted at the beginning. You kind of have to be what you've been all year in Game 6. You can't shy away from who you've been, the cardiac road warrior Knicks, and so that's what they're going to be, and they're going to live and die by that. So the question is, do they live by that or do they die by that? And I'm sure that my prediction will be 100% wrong. I'm not going to give a prediction on who's going to win this series, because I'm a superstitious guy.
I like that. Keep it simple. Don't give too much away, and keep it to what you're kind of expecting, overarching. I will say this: the pressure that the Knicks felt after losing Game 5 to Boston is going to be similar to how the Pacers felt or feel right now. The only difference, obviously, being that the Knicks didn't just lose their top player, right? So this is an even battle still, as even as it's been all game. And we got one more guy who popped in here, Mo. Welcome to the Spaces on Subway Sports Talk. Jump in and give your take. What's up, Mo?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing good.
Holy shit.
You feeling?
I had like so much adrenaline, like some like before tip off. Like, it's crazy how much I care for this team. Like, what a game, honestly. We whooped their asses. In the end, we still got to get 2 more. It's not over at all. But remind everyone just to enjoy this win, even though we're not, we didn't finish the job. But still, enjoy this win, because you never know what it can end up to. It could end up to us winning Game 6 in Indiana and Game 7 in MSG, and we face OKC.
Right.
It could really end up to things that no one thought would have happened. We really, in all seriousness, we really should be up 3-1, honestly.
Right. Yeah, it's really easy to think about this team being up 3-2 right now. I keep saying this, like, they should have won Game 1. They could have won Game 2. And you can't play shoulda, coulda, woulda at this point in a playoff series. But your point to enjoying this is really important, Mo. I was on my TikTok. I had 100 comments on 2 of my TikToks over the last week. Pacers fans coming at me for my wrong prediction, whatever. Wow. I'll take the smoke and I'll earn it. Whatever. I'll wear it on the chin. Wow. However, the idea that this team that some people were getting to, and maybe it's not Knicks fans, maybe it is some Knicks fans saying, this team actually sucks. They're not there. Like, they're disappointing. This is a failure. Nah, miss me with all that energy. That's not what I'm going to sit here and talk about, because we didn't think they were beating Boston.
High. And
exactly.
Look, there's also positives. Even, like, this sounds stupid, but there's positives even if we don't win this series. We can see OKC beat the shit out of Indiana,
which is probable.
Which is very probable, like a 90% chance. Unless Indiana is really just like that team. Really.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And you know what? You play the games that you're dealt, right? No one gave the Knicks any extra love because they were hurt when the Pacers beat them last year. No one's given the Celtics any extra love because Tatum went down in the series last series.
Exactly.
You play the team in front of you. Exactly. You play the team in front of you, man. Like, no one criticized Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat for making the finals when they played a hurt Giannis, a hurt Knicks team, a hurt Celtics. Like, no one cares. Win the games in front of you, and that's all you can ask for.
Exactly.
And most importantly for this team, they need to keep going down with fights if they go down. Like, they need to go down with a fight.
Yeah, like, if they're gonna win, if you're gonna lose the series or lose like a game 7 or a game 6, go down like you actually care. Don't get blown out by like 20, 30, or like what we did to them today. Don't do that.
Yeah, I want the heartbreak, man. I don't want the
Yeah,
blowout
I want the
stuff.
heartbreak. I don't want to like get like a it's already over when you're entering the third quarter.
Yeah, no,
I don't
miss
want
me
that
with that
kind
too.
of-
I'm with you.
Exactly.
Mo, I appreciate you, Mo. Unfortunately, you jumped in the spaces right as I was about to close up shop here.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Shout out to you for popping in. Shout out to my boy Rob Russo and Nick Foster from Mets Muse. As always, shout out to Richie, who was in here with us this whole time. We had a bunch of people in and out of the spaces for the last hour or so. Appreciate y'all. Follow us if you tapped in at all right here at Subway Sports Talk. Look us up on TikTok at Subway Sports Talk as well, posting content there every single day. So let's go Knicks, man. It's game 6 Saturday night. They are underdogs again. They are +4 against the Indiana Pacers on Saturday night. And all I'll say is this. They're underdogs. I'll just say this. I expect a better version of Tyrese Halliburton, and I do expect more minutes from Aaron Nesmith on Saturday night, which is going to create a much tougher matchup than we saw here in game 5. So Knicks fans, don't get too ahead of yourselves. Get ready, get pumped for Saturday night. It's going to be a war, and it's going to be a blast. But to all you guys in the spaces, everyone who also listens on the podcast app, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube, thank y'all for tuning in. As always, I'm Pete Kennedy from Subway Sports Talk, and we will talk to you soon, hopefully talking about a Game 7 back at Madison Square Garden. Let's go, Knicks. Cheers.